What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Justin Miller of Profit911.biz. And Justin, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. Since this is part of the Top Agency series and Top Direct Response series, some really good ones is Brian Kurtz. I actually have Brian Kurtz on maybe 3 times. That's pretty rare, Justin, but like he's a legend in the industry. Actually, he has a forward to Justin's book, luckily. So I got Justin's book here. If you're watching the video, you can see it, but it's Jurassic Marketing, How to Create a Big Bang in Your Business with Modern Direct Mail, and forward by Brian Kurtz. When I got it, Justin, I'm like, oh, Brian Kurtz, the forward. That's awesome. But he's got a couple amazing episodes. He's sent billions of direct response in the mail, and so check that out. I also did an episode with Ron Popeil, may he rest in peace. Ron Popeil, people know, is the king of infomercials. And if you've heard, but wait, there's more, that's Ron Popeil. And he had some amazing stories from his journey in direct response. From an agency standpoint, I had Ian Garlic on, who runs Video Case Story, and he talks about how people can capture customer stories to help their business. And it's interesting. There was some, he comes from his dad was an entrepreneur, Justin, his dad had dolphins in their restaurant. And so he just got the creative juices flowing, and he's in Orlando, which is, having a dolphin in a restaurant is strange, but they were actually in Wisconsin for that restaurant. So that makes it even stranger. I know you and I are in Illinois. So I know going in the winter.
I'd put some dinosaurs in here if they were alive still. I get it.
There you go. Yeah. So check that one out and more on InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise25. Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. And we do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. So Justin, we call ourselves kind of the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy. So the host and the company can create amazing relationships and great content and focus on running their business. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I am excited to introduce Justin Miller. And kind of, Justin, the question I know you always ask and people ask is direct mail dead, right? And are dinosaurs extinct? I guess you're bringing them back. But Justin's the author of Jurassic Marketing, like I just said. It's right here. It resurrects dinosaurs of direct mail for business owners every single day. He went from DJ owner to running Profit 911. We'll talk a little bit about the journey, but they serve businesses. They help businesses get more customers, clients through direct response in the mail. That could be postcards, it could be physical newsletters, it could be letters, it could be handwritten cards, it could be a number of ways. And thank you, Nick Luisi, for introducing us at Sales Performance Team, who does fractional sales management and outsourced sales leadership. Nick, thanks I've known Justin just through the ether, but now we formally were introduced from Nick. So Justin, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
To just start off and talk about, there's many topics we could talk about, like you being a comedy hypnotist, stand-up comedy hypnotist. We won't go there yet.
But have to sum those all in as entertainer.
I mean, you're going to hypnotize. If you wait till the end, maybe you'll hypnotize me on this Zoom. But talk about Profit 911 and what you do.
Yeah. So Profit 911 is a marketing agency that happens to own a letter shop and direct mail shop. So you're pulling up the website there now. It's all dinosaur themed, but that doesn't mean all our marketing is, just the stuff for ourselves. Our job is to get eyeballs for your message and to open doors for you, much like you do on the podcasting here, Jeremy. Ours is just offline, hitting physical mailboxes. And you kind of mentioned, is direct mail extinct? And it's funny because when I'm at events and masterminds and networking, that's the question. And it becomes quite a long discussion. So with the regular outside world, it doesn't. But with business owners, this is an anomaly when they hear that someone is not only succeeding with direct mail, but doing it for a lot of companies. Most people just assume it's dead or super expensive. But it's funny, Profit 911 actually started as a digital agency, and we are no longer that. We are only direct mail now. Couple of reasons. One is we were getting better results for our clients through the media of direct mail. And second, as a business owner, it's less saturated than anything else. So it doesn't take too many knocks to where we start realizing the universe is telling us to go that direction. So we are all in on direct mail, and millions of pieces every year go out from our facility right here in Illinois.
Justin, I love when people say direct mail is dead. It's just less competition. They're not going to use things at work. And, and people say that, I mean, this is what you do, right? But like, I kind of, same thing with podcasts. They'd be like, oh, everyone has a podcast. I'm like, yeah, just don't do one. See what happens. But, if we look at it, you get a package in the mail, Amazon package. Are you going to open it or are you going to throw it out? Like, of course you're going to open it. Like, so I just think it's funny when people say direct mail is dead. Like, people are probably getting tons of direct mail that they're opening every single day themselves. So on a high level for a second, DJ, digital agency owner. I mean, I guess there was a comedy hypnotist in there somewhere. Was that pre-DJ?
There was game show services, photo booths, entrepreneur since junior high probably. Luckily, I started crossing paths with marketers and direct response marketers pretty early, probably about the age of 16, when I'd been running the DJ business. And that happenstance encounter and curiosity served me well in my own businesses. So I learned a lot about marketing, and it allowed that company to grow. And it did pretty damn well for that industry. Ultimately, I sold it. My passion changed completely to just the marketing side and the business side of it anyway. So I had an opportune moment to get out, and I did. And we were already teaching within that industry. I was going to national conferences. We were duplicating what we had done in that business for others within that industry and then outside of that industry. So there was actually a legitimate evolution there, not just a wake up one day and, oh, I think I'm a marketing agency now. And the hypnotist, as an aside really quick, since you brought it up, that was also a curiosity. There's some salesmanship and marketing lessons, which you could do a whole podcast about. But essentially, I was providing sound at an event we were hired for a hypnotist, and watched the gentleman who flew across the country come in, grab the microphone, talk for an hour, and I caught a glimpse of his check, and he was making 5 times what we did providing the sound. So again, I can follow the trail of success and find my way over there.
What's a funny story on when you were doing the hypnotist thing?
Oh, so our specialty was high school lock-in events. So here in the Midwest, there's like a lot of after prom events. So like all night they lock the kids in so they don't go out and get drunk and smash cars into each other. So that was my specialty, and I would drive 100 miles, do an hour show, tear down, drive another 100 miles, do another show, and be home at like 7 a.m. It was grueling, but it was fun. And here, one of the secrets of the hypnosis shows is having them look out of control, but not be out of control, is what the audience likes.
What was the craziest thing you had someone do?
So my show was pretty safe and tame and low key because I wanted to get hired back. So my job was to not overly embarrass people, but we had a couple of recurring skits. We'd have people pretend they're driving their dream car and get pulled over by police, and that reaction was always interesting, and an excuse they'd come up with was interesting. We did elbow inspector. When a song played, someone would go out into the audience and start inspecting elbows. You never knew what you were going to get with that.
How did you
And then,
learn the hypnosis part?
so believe it or not, there was a direct response marketer selling how to do hypnosis to disc jockeys.
Dude,
Jeff
disc jockey,
Ronning.
that's like quite a niche.
Yeah, well, that was one that he sold to, right? So Jeff Ronning was his name, and he's also in the marketing circles and owns Stealth Seminar. Um, but yeah, he sold to disc jockeys because there was a pool of entertainers that had some of that skill set, and you fill in the blanks and they could learn it. Flew out to Vegas, learned that, bought all his products. A lot of them were business oriented, not necessarily hypnosis oriented. And that's how I learned it. I went and watched a lot of shows. I took the home
Was it hard to
study and
learn?
did it. What?
Was it hard to learn?
No, not necessarily, but it was
Huh.
stressful. So from a performance standpoint, that was probably the most stressful hour of anything I've done.
Why?
I did disc jockey events, I did game shows, all kinds of stuff, but hypnosis is 100% dependent on audience participation. So you never know what you're going to walk into.
Are you looking for a certain personality type to actually get
Yes,
this question a lot?
we need high compliance, obviously. So it's not about someone that's going to come up and invent their own show and be funny. It's about someone that's going to come up and respond to your influence and exactly do what you say to do. So that's what you're looking for.
So what do you see? Like when you are looking at the crowd, how do you
Yeah, so
target
it's not
someone as high
necessarily when you're looking at the
compliance?
crowd, you just bring up more people for the initial part than you need, and you kick out as you go. So you'll see often a hypnotist start with 15 chairs on stage and go around and pick the audience. You can't really make too many judgment calls on that, but when they're in the chairs and you're doing what's called the induction and all that stuff, that's when we're looking and observing and kicking out. So
It's really interesting because I kind of parallel this, Justin, to client selection, actually, because as you know, an agency owner, the better results people get, they listen to your expertise, right?
yeah.
And so it's kind of similar as far
In
as,
my world, that's list selection, right?
yeah,
So it's, who's going to respond to the message, who's not. And in this case, it would be money put behind it. So if I'm going to bother to put a letter in the mail and spend, I don't know, $1 a piece, all said and done, I need a decent chance that person's going to respond. And how long do I give them to respond before I kick them out of my show? I've never thought of it that way. We could make another book now, Jeremy.
yeah, because I feel like at least our clients, probably yours, there's a high compliance. Like they listen to what we say because we know what we're doing. The people who follow what we do and probably what you instruct, like I know you're like, don't send one mailer, send a series of, mailers, right? And if someone's like, no, Justin, I just want to send one, they're not going to get the results. You're going to get blamed.
Yeah, we can
And
spot, better chance of success before someone ever mails for sure. My account
yeah,
execs here can see that. We can have two companies running a 90% similar campaign in different areas, and one is thrilled and one says it flops. And we're like, okay. And a lot of times that comes down to how committed they were, what they did with the lead afterwards, what they declared a lead. Um, it's interesting, yeah.
because some stuff is, out of your hands at that point. Like you help craft it, you send it out. But if they don't have the proper systems in place to process that, then, you got them 90% of the way, but maybe the client didn't close.
Yeah, our
Right?
job's to open doors. So we deal primarily with professional service providers, various niches, accountants, doctors, dentists, attorneys, various specialties. So all we can do is open the door. We can't, do a 30-page sales letter that you respond to and buy for whatever dollar amount at the end. That's not our specialty. Now, that is direct mail and that is an entire industry, but it's not where we play. So all we can do is open the door. We can cause the phone call. We can cause the web click. But after that, you're right. Someone else has to pick it up and follow up and have a system in place. And, Profit 911 originally started there and built those systems. We built multi-channel follow-up systems. And people still need those. And it's never an either or. It's not like email versus mail, right? It's both.
I want to talk about the evolution of niches that you served. And because even back to your DJ days, right? You had this idea and you eventually had niched to weddings.
Yeah.
And because those pay a lot, right?
Yep.
And biggest bang for your buck and time. And so when you started the digital agency, walk me through, and I know now you serve a lot of professional services, PTs, chiropractors, dentists, accountants, whatever. When you first started the digital agency, walk me through some of the niches that you kind of maybe weeded out and how you came to now.
Well, I mean, we first served the ones I came from. So, we taught other disc jockeys the marketing systems. We actually sold them just clones of what I was already using because we knew it worked, and it was way more comprehensive than pretty much what anyone else was using or had out there. This was also kind of the infancy of all these marketing automation type softwares. So I was an early adopter of those, which really helped. But we were also highly aggressive in outbound calling and every technology that was available, and getting PR and then following up with PR and using those for everywhere. So we sold into DJs first, and got my feet wet, made a little money, and I don't want to speak down to the industry too much because it's a lot of fun. A lot of people have a ton of passion in there, but it is difficult to make a great salary at. Particularly if you're a smaller operation or smaller geography. There's limitations in every business. Beyond that, we went to other business owners that were in the same circles I was. So I was playing around in the GKIC world, the magnetic marketing world. I was in and out of those mastermind groups and made a lot of friends there. So we got, our ins and our first attempts at other industries. I can think of a personal injury attorney we had pretty early out the gate, multiple dentists. And that's when you start to learn that marketing is marketing. It is marketing. So there is, believe it or not, a lot of similarity between the core foundations of marketing a wedding entertainment company and marketing a cosmetic dentistry company. The dentists don't want to hear that. And we don't necessarily have to tell them that.
A unique snowflake.
Yeah. That's right. You're unique, just like everyone else. But that allowed me to play in that world. And then I did some outsourced work for Infusionsoft at the time, now Keep. For about a year, I did onboardings for them and retention accounts. So when they sold an account, I would get them and spend 3 hours with them and get their initial setup going, get them to value. Or if they were at risk of canceling, they would pay me for a few hours to come in and get them to value so they would stay. So very quickly, I had dozens, if not hundreds, of different industries, everything from psychics to real estate brokerages with 30 agents. So that really got me the breadth of industry experience that kind of pulled together into what we have today.
Yeah, I want to mention, it's funny. I want to hear a little bit about how you stumbled in the GKIC world. But I do want to mention I did a episode with Brad Martin of 6th Division, and who is also in that Infusionsoft Keep environment, and Greg Hickman, who Greg is actually pivoted to a different industry, but we actually used his services many years ago when we started using Infusionsoft. But how did you stumble upon GKIC?
Yeah, so I would have to blame or thank Dave D for that. So Dave is someone that was in that world and pretty well known in those circles. So when I was attending a national disc jockey conference in Orlando, Florida at the age of 15 with my parents, who of course had to take me there. Dave was on stage giving a presentation on marketing systems for entertainers.
And he was a magician.
He was a magician at the time, yeah. And he sold to magicians, and then disc jockeys were the second audience he sold to because he declared them having more money than magicians. So he sold a product. When he was talking, this was the first time I had seen probably a from the stage sales pitch or someone speaking about marketing systems, and that was one of the light bulb moments. And I bought what he had. And by the way, I still know Dave today, and he has a mastermind group that I'm part of. But it didn't take long until I heard Dave mentioning the name Dan Kennedy over and over. So I'm like, all right, who's Dan? All right, go to Barnes and Noble or Borders or whoever it was at the time. It was Walden Books at the time. Pick up the Dan Kennedy books and find your way into that circle, and probably responded to something in one of the books. They used to have CDs in those books. And then eventually started attending events. They had at least 2 very large events every year, very large by that industry standard. And I started going to those, and then eventually was able to afford mastermind groups and join those, and continue to heavily invest in groups. Recently, Genius Network, I've been in for a few years. And that's been a big key is networking with other people that are trying to grow and already at some sort of scale. And yeah,
Who
one
are
of those
some
very
of
first triggers
the?
was Dave D.
I love that, Justin. And I did an episode many years ago with Dave D, which is a really good one. He shared his 2 low points, so people can check that out. Who are some of your other mentors or maybe colleagues you respect in the direct response industry that you've maybe studied or learned from throughout the years?
So most of the ones that I play with are going to be unsung heroes behind the scenes that no one would ever know.
Let's hear about it.
So we, through some of these mastermind groups, I've had the ability to meet some other players that are further along than I am in providing these services. And they've been very courteous, and we've taken staff to tour facilities. So one of them is Joe Foley at disc.com, who's been serving, info marketing and everything else for God knows how long. So we road tripped
He's
up to
also
Joe's
in
facility.
Illinois. Yeah.
Yep, he is. He was within driving distance. So we took the crew there and toured his massive facility, and took some learning lessons out of that. And
Joe's one of the nicest human beings for sure.
he is. There's another one I met was John Webble, who is out east and runs a print and mail shop. So there are some of us out there. The interesting thing when I got in the direct mail industry, though, is by and large, it was a very tight-lipped, difficult to learn industry, more so than anything I've done. And I've been in and out of a half dozen now. Everything's kind of antiquated, doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. Everyone's quiet and secretive. And it's probably because the industry overall is on the decrease. I don't care that it's on the decrease. I'm a small thing in the whole grand scheme of things, and I'm on the increase, and that's all I really care about. But it is a really weird, backwards feeling industry, and tied inextricably to the post office, which of course is burdened in red tape and regulation as well. So it's a weird place to play.
Any other in the, just like you've learned from a marketing perspective? You mentioned Dave D, obviously. Brian Kurtz probably falls in that arena. Any others that you've learned from?
Chet Holmes is on my shelf back here. It's kind of the who's who of business books. You used to be able to just go grab them off the shelf of the store, and that's who it would be. So I learned a lot through reading, especially before I could afford going to events or anything like that. I'm trying to think if I have
any other favorite books.
Now. Literally Brian Kurtz is sitting on my desk right now.
Yeah, Over Deliver. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I stayed isolated for quite a while inside Kennedy world. So he's so prolific. There was so much to learn. I was very happy when Adam Whitty bought the organization from Advantage, Forbes Books. He brought some organizational development stuff in that was lacking, which is what I'm building here. I'm not building a Justin Miller show. I'm happy to come on podcasts, but I'm not taking credit for anything that happens here. That's going on starting about 15 feet that direction and going back another 80. My team has been great. So most of my studying these days is focused around organizational development. Of course, I keep my ear to the marketing ground, but there's a lot of shiny object at this point. There's not much new.
Talk about the decision to shut down your digital agency and just focus on more the physical stuff?
Yeah.
Not an
So
easy decision, because you were doing that for many years.
no, and it wasn't overnight either. So I had staff in place on the digital side, and I took that off my leadership plate over time. I wasn't involved in the delivery of it. I wasn't involved in the sales of it. And ultimately, it's not that it wasn't viable. Obviously, there's tons of great digital agencies out there. It's just that our direct mail side was getting results for the client, and therefore it grew itself. The growth trajectory on mail versus digital was well over 5 to 1 when we compared them. So at that point, it becomes how much bandwidth and time do I have right here? Which sounds kind of selfish, but that's ultimately why this business is here. It's to serve our clients and me at the end of the day. So there was just too much mental bandwidth consumed by something producing too little in the scheme of what was going on. Now there was great synergy between the two. So it was nice, probably from a client standpoint, to have those both in-house. However, at this point, I'm able to network and work with a lot of agencies before that would have never done that because they saw us as competition, regardless of whether or not we were. So focusing has been great. Also, we are now able to answer the "what do you do" question, which, believe it or not, was very difficult to do before because we were 20 different things to 20 different people. So
Was there a campaign, Justin, that sticks out to you that you were maybe probably doing both for? You're doing digital, you're doing print stuff, and then you realize, because you mentioned earlier, the print stuff was just killing it for them. And you're like, why don't we just focus more on this? I mean, it's like we can do a lot of things, right? You have a lot of capabilities and knowledge, but focusing, like you mentioned, is key to just being more growing partnerships and all those things. What was a campaign that sticks out? Maybe you were doing both, but you realized we need to just focus on the direct mail stuff.
Well, yeah, some is observation, right? So sometimes we were being pulled into existing organizations with existing campaigns in play and got to see behind the scenes what's going on. And some of the more complex conditional type campaign follow-up, almost all of them had direct mail in play. And this is in the Keep world, the great thing was we could trigger direct mail. So we were always doing that. We weren't always a provider of it, but we were always creating that account for someone else. One of the campaigns that we regularly see is actually we serve a lot of members of Michael Rosbrook. He teaches CPAs and EAs and attorneys how to do tax resolution business. And we do a referral type campaign for them. So it's opening doors to referral sources. And we do this in a lot of industries, but his in particular. And we have a list of, God, I don't know, nationwide 400 people or 400,000 people on the list, maybe. So for anyone anywhere in the country, we have the list. We can pull, okay, what's your budget? $1,000 a month. Okay, this is how many you can send. And this thing is so predictable. So we have the same campaign in play for some people that are mailing 500 pieces a month. Up to, I think the peak client does closer to 50,000. Same dang thing repeated over and over. So when I see that, to us, it means it's scalable as a service provider. But to the client, it's scalable as a media, and it's directly scalable. So a lot of times with like the online advertising, like pay-per-click, you get something that's working, you double or triple the budget, and it's not linear. Like it doesn't double or triple the result. And we got another hurdle. We got to figure out why this didn't scale quite right. And then you get to another plateau. And in direct mail, unless your list is exhausted, if the universe of names for what you're already doing still has names, it's okay. How much do you want to send? So once you've proven it out, it's great. And a lot of times that's limited by what the client can serve. And that's fine too. I hate it as a business provider because my goal is to get you results, and then you need to figure out how to fulfill on that. And let's just keep going up. So we have another example, a very finite one for you. We have a local tree service company that they can just text us when they start to feel slow and like, all right, send another round. And I don't know, it's like $1,500, $2,000, something like that. And okay, we know exactly what to send. We do it. Okay, they're good again. They got their 20 leads or whatever. And that's amazing because that same campaign could be used anywhere in the country. And for us as a provider, if we wanted to push into tree services heavily, we certainly could. We know which dial to go. And there's not a lot of media that exists on. I believe that's very unique to direct mail.
Talk about the tree services for a second, Justin. I'm sure they don't have a head of copywriting on staff at the tree services company. So you're helping craft that with them?
Yeah, so I like to say we're a marketing agency that happens to also do the mail in-house. So most of our clients, they've never mailed. They may have a marketing coordinator on staff, or it may just be the owner that's dealing with the marketing. That would be the majority of people we're working with, and we come in at concept stage, and we help them through writing. We do the graphic design layout, and we ultimately end up printing and mailing. So that's really our unique value, is that we help create.
You could send stuff in the mail. It doesn't mean it's going to not get thrown out or get read or call to action.
Yeah, when we get the print ready stuff, there's no magic really in that. We are set up a little unique in how we physically produce stuff, but we're printing and mailing at that point. There's no magic there. The post office is happy to mail for anyone. I don't have an exclusive on that. They do hate you when you get to a certain volume, which is really funny, but that's an aside.
What did the tree services one look like? Was it in an envelope? Was it a postcard? Like, walk me through.
The tree service one is emulating what a flyer may look like if they had physically stuffed it in your mailbox, walking and canvassing the neighborhood. So it's a very low-tech piece. It's a single page. It is black and white. It has a little bit of blue handwriting font on it that may trick someone into thinking someone wrote it. And it is not fancy. So that's probably a good point to make as well. You never quite know what's going to hit. We go based on experience and what we've seen, but some things have no rhyme or reason. And this one, it doesn't follow the formula of anything you've learned or anything that's on the bookshelf behind me. And every time we try and test something against it, we lose. So I think we did maybe 10 or 12 split tests, and now we're done testing. It works. Let's just send that version.
What were you surprised about that didn't work? I'm curious. And so the way we're thinking of it's like almost like a 8x11 postcard. There's
this was literally an 8.5 by 11 sheet.
Yeah, and you just mail it as is. It shows up like that. There's nothing. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I was surprised because we've tested it against some more graphically appealing stuff. We've tested it against testimonials on the piece, which, that's like 101 level marketing. You got testimonials. They have great ones. Now that screwed it up. We've tested some geographical descriptors in there, looking.
So it seems more personal.
Yeah. Like, insert your city here, a few different places. We've even tested sales rep name. So we're like, all right, does this make a difference if it comes from the owner of the company versus someone that is clearly a sales rep? It did not. Trying to think of what else.
I like hearing the tests because it's like you've seen these things work before in other channels, like doing something geographic, putting the name of the person, making it personal, testimonials. Yeah. What else?
And in another campaign, it will. That's the thing, it's very hard to go with general assumptions here. It worked here and it will work there.
Yep.
A more concrete example goes back to that disc jockey company I had. We were serving high-end weddings, and we did a lot of direct mail. I was a user of direct mail way before I was a seller and producer of it. And we had very fancy, glossy, flowy, typical wedding magazine looking stuff. And we had a canary cardstock, black and white text, 4 to a page built-in Microsoft Publisher thing, postcard that went out. And we mailed both of those to the same list. And I won't say one outpulled the other, but they both got different responses. So not sending both, we would have lost someone that responded to a different type of message and feel, which drove a lot of people nuts because, it was a highly image conscious industry, including ourselves. It was off brand compared to some other stuff, but it pulled in different leads and they still spent on high end stuff. So you have to be really careful. You have to throw some darts at the board occasionally, and you have to have some gambling budget. You never want to come in so hot that, if it doesn't hit, you're never going to do it again, because it takes a while.
Let's talk call to action for a second. So on that, the tree services, what have you tested and what worked with the call to action?
Good question, because that is one of the variables we tested over and over. So the winner was request an estimate. Didn't matter what else it was. It was request a quote, request an estimate. And we tried multiple media. So we had a landing page, just a straight up.com. We had a text the sales rep, and we had a call the sales rep. I'm going to let you try and guess first. So what do you think?
Well, listen,
there was a response on all three, by the way.
I've done research, so I already know the answer based on what you've said in the past. So it's kind of biased. So I could tell you, but I already know the answer before you asked it.
I mean,
it was
this one surprised me a little bit, actually.
Oh, okay. So I think from what you said, it was a text that outpulled everything else.
Yeah, the text and by a thin margin. The call was next, and the .com was way, 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 way down there. The text, I think, is just going to keep going more and more. Obviously, there's regulations in that world. Another reason I left the digital side, there's way more regulations. But the text did outpull for sure. I think it's that non-confrontational type first point.
Well, it's easy too. I mean, people have their phone. Are there certain platforms that you'd recommend if someone's like, I don't do any text, but what platforms have you seen people use?
We've used a bunch, and I would base it on, what software is already in play. So I don't want to give a blanket one. At the end of the day, they almost all run through Twilio one way or another. So pick your interface you want on the front of it. But yeah, if it makes sense. That was also, I think, in that industry, text was number one, because you expected that you were going to have a one-on-one conversation with someone that was going to come give you the quote regardless. Like, it was very clear what you were asking for, and I think the general buyer had no idea what the service cost, and that's why the estimate pulled. I mean, no one's cutting down trees for fun, so we can talk about list selection if you want on that, because that was kind of a neat one.
Yeah,
and everyone can steal this now, but it's fine. It wasn't unique to us to start with. All we do for list selection on that one is we take the USPS route maps and we overlay them with the satellite photos, and we look where the damn trees are at and where the houses that look like they have some money are. And that's who gets the mailings. But that's it. Does it take a little effort? Yes. Does it take a human being? Yes. But I wish every industry, was like that, and you could see there's a potential need.
You talk about Every Door Direct too, because you use that. I don't know if that's the tree services was the home services example, or that's separate, but talk about Every Door Direct and how you use that.
Yeah, so the tree service was one of them. So the postal routes, when you do Every Door Direct mail, it means the USPS is going to put in every single mailbox where a particular postman delivers. So sometimes it's anywhere from 100 to 300-ish addresses. So that's how narrow you can get. The reason you would use Every Door Direct is because it's the cheapest postage per piece. So the expense in my world is postage, by and large. There's exception if you're doing something big, but for the most part, it's postage. So if you can make it work, it works. Another home services, we've rolled out the tree thing across multiple industries. So you got roofers, plumbers, anyone where there's a transaction that is worth a couple $1,000 plus on average. So Illinois trees, we got oak trees. If you got to tear one of those out, you open your wallet, it's probably $4 or $5 grand, something like that. So any service in that price point, usually you can make that work. A roof, that could be 20 grand. It's been a while since I've done one that's non-commercial, so I don't remember at this point. But anything like that where you have an abnormal sale and it's kind of being in front of the right person, right time, then it becomes how frequently, how cheaply can we get the message to the right person? Now, on the other side, switching gears, if we have a more qualified prospect or someone that's in our world, then it's, how much can we be in front of them, and the dollar doesn't quite matter as much. And that's when we switch over to like a newsletter or something like that instead of a cheap postcard.
So let's talk about PTs, physical therapists, for a second. There's a good newsletter example there, but I'm curious, before we go there, is what are you focused on? Because you could focus on all these different industries. I'm curious, what are the industries you're really focused in, and then how are you, because you're an expert at this. So like you could just, I got a very cool, I wish you had what this came in, because it was so cool. It was like this, you're not going to open this thing.
Yeah. So
unless you're crazy,
shiny blue metallic envelope, which by the way, you can go to uline.com and get. We don't have a corner on the market on shiny envelopes by any means.
Love it. I loved it. It was great. I almost saved the envelope just because I like good direct response stuff,
Yeah. So we tend to, on our house list, only use those shiny envelopes once a year. And they always get remembered. So you got the book in it. We do an annual magazine that usually goes out in one of those. And I can't tell you how many people bring up that piece throughout the course of the year when I meet them at events and stuff. And they have the thing that came, and they mentioned the envelope. They might not even remember what came in the damn thing. They're like, with the blue envelope.
Just send nothing in it. Just a Post-it note next time. It's like, we don't need to even waste.
You could get the call. They'll be like, I just see what's. And actually,
you forgot to put something in it.
A marketing agency could get away with that tactic. The rest of the world, I wouldn't suggest it. I forgot your question now because we got off on the shiny blue envelope.
Who are you focused in on? And like, what's your process?
Yeah. So at this point, we focus a little more on the what than the who, because they're similar for reasons that we discussed earlier. But we kind of have a 1, 2, 3 punch in terms of where we can get results the easiest. So the first one is existing professional services that is doing nothing with direct mail. And almost without exception, the first piece we put in play is a monthly print client newsletter. So in my world, very common, but when you get outside of my circles, not very common. The reason we do this, it keeps people around longer. It builds loyalty to you. It's cheap. For each name on the list, depending on the quantity, you might be spending $12 for someone to be on the list for the year. And this was part and parcel to every single business I owned.
It's a high perceived value also.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care if they even throw it away, but it's a cheap way to get that repeat exposure to someone that already has some sort of connection to you. So in the wedding business, we sent the newsletters. Not much repeat business in the wedding business. Occasional.
Maybe 50% of people get divorced.
Yeah, they don't spend a lot of money on the high-end wedding typically the second time.
That's true. Yeah.
We would get referrals. The only purpose it existed was referrals. So we do that. And you mentioned physical therapist. We recently put one of these in play for a physical therapy practice, and we did tracking on the phone number and .com on the piece. So it was different than their main one. And I shouldn't have been, but I was amazed by how many existing patients the number they called or the .com they went to was off that piece. Meaning this phone number should already be saved in their cell phone. You should already
the
be
main office line. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, you grabbed the newsletter off your counter and that's what prompted you to call, which is really interesting. And that works for other industries as well, too. And it's an easy piece to get out the door. So that's kind of our first punch if that's not already in play. By the way, it's not a sexy thing. Like no one comes really wanting that. And we have to, cajole you a little bit to say, okay, we know this is going to work.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I guess I call myself a recovering chiropractor, Justin, but I should have been sending these, but when we sent a lot of emails, we never did the physical newsletter. That would have been smart. But the lifetime value of a client, if you get a reactivation from that one reactivation, probably 5 times the payment of or more of what you're sending for that campaign in general.
Well, everyone thinks they're doing great in retention, and myself included, and we looked into it, and we need to improve that as well. But everyone thinks they're great. They just want more leads. And there's almost always room to improve there. Moving on, then, once we have that building block in play, the second one we go to is referral type campaigns, meaning who can I get in front of that can send me 5 of my ideal clients a year? Because math works. I get 5 times, maybe they refer over 3 years. I get 15 clients for the price of 1, same amount of money to send out the letter. So that's our referral campaigns we go to next. We find a list of what commonality or what other parallel industry can refer your service and would refer your service. And that's a predictable campaign for us as well. And then the third punch is what everyone comes asking for, and that is a paying end customer, which is the hardest thing to generate through mail. So we don't want to start there because we want to start with easy, but we'll absolutely do it. And sometimes that comes down to a game of it's either how dialed in can I get the recipient list or how cheap can I get the piece out the door. So you got to do one of those two to make that work. If you got a dialed in recipient list, we can send expensive stuff to them. We can send giant boxes, like my bank sent me a shock and awe box, which I was impressed by, a bank doing that. And it's got cookies and a magazine and a book. I don't get many, by the way, not many boxes, but that has to be a dialed in list. Now, if they were going to all the business owners in the area, okay, well, it might work, but we might be down to postcard now.
Justin, one last question. Before I ask it, I just want to point people to your website. People can check out profit911.biz. Justin's been doing this a long time. They know what they're doing. So check them out, poke around. And I love your stuff, and I get it. I open it, I read it. Fantastic. So thank you. My last question is about culture. And, for you, I know, as you were mentioning, it's not you, it's the team. I mean, it is you, but it's the team is doing the work. They're behind the scenes, making sure everything happens. And so I'm just wondering some of the things you do to maintain culture, right? And you could tell right off the bat, if you ever go to their website or browse their website, they have a fun culture, and they have a values page that's one of their core values, which is have fun. So what are you things you're doing to maintain a good culture with the company that other people should think about?
Yeah, I mean, ours starts with who we brought in to start with. So the initial values that you're mentioning on our page were created by the team 2 or 3 years ago. We sat down and we're like, what really matters to us? So subconsciously, I'd already recruited for these things, but we sat down and figured out what they really are, and we voiced them, and we live up to them. So we've recruited good people that actually give a crap. Most of them have some sort of small business background or experience, which is who we like dealing with. One of our core values is we celebrate small business. We really do. We want to see you succeed. At the same time, I want this to be a place that people like coming to. Almost all of our staff was hired during COVID, which means they wanted out of their house. So they actually wanted to come to a physical workplace. So that was a bit unique to start with. We enjoy each other. We enjoy working together. Everyone knows their place, and therefore we get to have fun. We have 4 Segway scooters in the basement of our office we take out when the weather gets nice. We did a company skydive last year that 6 out of 8 team members jumped from. The other 2 went and cheered us on. At the end of the day, it's a business, but what's the point if people don't enjoy being here is really my core philosophy. I want people to be here. I want them speaking highly about the company, and I want them to be proud of what they do. I do too. If it's all about money, I would not be standing here talking to you right now.
Justin, I'm the first one to thank you. Everyone check out profit911.biz, more episodes of the podcast, and we'll see everyone next time. Justin, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I feel like 100 grand.